Welcome back to Irish Strength, and we are on the build-up to the biggest competition, not just of this year, but of the last 3 or 4 years here in Ireland, and it's official Strongman Ireland's Open Championships. So what is the actual competition? I know a lot of you are screaming at the screen at the moment, going, just who's the athletes? We all want to know who the athletes are. But I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the competition first. I'm sorry, okay? You're going to have to wait for a second. So the competition itself, the big thing about this is that this is a route to Giants Live. So the winner of this competition will get a ticket to Britain's Strongest Man, the Giants Live show. And then the top 3, so the podium places from that, get an invite to World's Strongest Man. So I can't stress how important that actually is and how exciting it is for the athletes that are competing on the day. Before, when people from Ireland wanted to try and get to World's Strongest Man, you would try and compete at every competition you could, and really you had to be talent spotted. You had to be seen at a competition, or really someone had to sort of notice your training in a very unusual way. That doesn't normally happen, but it would normally be at competitions where they'd see someone go, God, he's doing all right, we'll give him an invite to a Giants Live, or we'll use him as a stand-in if somebody gets injured. Now with this competition, the athletes see a route, so they can go, right, if I win this, I go to Britain's Strongest Man. If I come top 3 there, I go to Worlds. So it's very exciting for these athletes that most of them will probably never have dreamed of getting to Worlds. Now they have a route that's not very long. It's very tough, but it's not a very long route. They will have to win one comp, come top 3 in another, and they get an invite to Worlds. That is an incredible opportunity for these guys. Now, the competition itself, there's going to be between sort of 10 and 12 athletes. I'm going to give you all of the names. Some of them are maybes at the moment. But 10 to 12 athletes, they're all the best athletes in the open category that we have here in Ireland. They're top strength athletes. And there's not one of these guys that would look out of place at Britain's Strongest Man. Any one of them could win this and get that place, and they're all going to want to be targeting it. Now, the competition's been held in GEHQ Gym up in Antrim, that have held quite a lot of big competitions before. It's been organised by David Warner, who's very integrated into official Strongman. He was one of the sort of brains behind official Strongman's Ireland's Strongest Man in the weight categories back in September. Fantastic competition. Again, it's still on the channel. If you want to click back over, I'll put the link up there and you can have a look at that competition as well. There are spectator tickets available for this competition, and they are €10, okay? So to see a competition like this, an official Strongman Giants Live qualifier for €10, have a look in the description below. The link is there. Click on over, buy a ticket, come up on the day. It is well worth it. So definitely make sure, get yourself a ticket. This is the biggest competition you will get to see here in Ireland, and it is worth, the price of a takeaway. Okay? So rather than staying at home, buying a takeaway and watching it there, go and actually see the competition. However, if you don't and you decide to get that takeaway, you can watch my free live stream. So we're going to have a free live stream of the whole competition. We're not going to miss any of the action. We're going to have a commentary team there as well. Myself, Jade Hoare, guest commentators as well, and have interviews throughout the whole day with the athletes when they win in an event. The competition, one of the events that are coming up, because the competition was announced quite late, the organisers decided that they were going to pick events that were fairly core events for any strongman's training schedule. So what we're looking at is log for max. We've got the loading race. So that's going to include a couple of sandbags and kegs, tires, fairly standard stuff that most strongmen would be training. You've got a axle deadlift, 320 kg for reps, which you may think is slightly light. Now, we say slightly light. It's for reps. It's 320 kg and it's an axle barbell. It's going to be tough. However, some people have mentioned that they think it's a little bit light, and I can see what they're saying on this. But we're sort of nitpicking a little bit on that one. The next one up is a giant yoke, and it's 420 kg, 12 meters down one way, turn, and 12 meters back. Very, very heavy. That's going to be a tough one. I think there's going to be one or two that might struggle to get it off the ground even. That's a very, very heavy weight. The next up, or the last event up, is the stones. You can start at 100 kg, 120, 140, 160, 180 is what they're finishing on. There are some athletes in there that are going to have no problem. Jack Harkin comes to mind, where I think the 180 will be very, very easy for him. I say very easy. I think it'll be very manageable. I think most of these athletes will get through at least the first 3 stones. I don't think anyone will have a huge amount of problems with the first 3. After that, the 160, 180, that's where you'll see a couple of people might struggle a little bit. But enough of my stalling, okay? You want the athletes' names, I'm going to give you them, okay? Before I do, I know you're going crazy there, but before I do, there are 3 athletes that have withdrawn, but I'm going to say are still maybes, because we're just not sure, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But we'll go through the athletes that are definitely going to be there. There are some that we knew were going to get an invite. The likes of Killian Groom, Ireland's Strongest Man, went to UK's Strongest Man this year, Britain's Strongest Man, Giants Live Show. Like, he's had an incredible year. He's at the peak of his career at the moment, and he was always going to get an invite. And to be fair, he's probably feeling like one of the favourites, and he's looking like one of the favourites at the moment. Next up, you've got Jack Harkin. Now, Jack's been a little bit quiet relatively compared to some of the other athletes that are going to be there. Over the last couple of years, he's been a little bit quiet. However, he hasn't, if you've been keeping track of Jack's training and different stuff, he hasn't lost any of his power. He hasn't lost any of his hunger for the competitions. He's just taken a little bit of time off, mainly to do commentary with me. But he's pulled back a little bit from the comp side of things on a wider base. Still done a few here and there, but he's looking very, very solid for this. He's looking strong, and from my own point of view, I think they would be the 2 that I would look at and go, these events really suit these guys. You know, I wouldn't like to say favourites exactly, but I think they could have very, very strong competitions. The next, I'll just leave that there. The next one we've got is Matchu McKagan. Now, Matchu has been on the scene for a long time now, done a lot of international competitions, very strong on the overhead, very strong on the axle, or on the deadlift, sorry. So they're going to be strong events for him. The one downside for Matchu, and we're going to be talking to him in a couple of days' time in one of the interviews, the downside for Matchu is his body weight is a little bit lower compared to most of them. And at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of mass moves mass. A lot of other aspects come into it as well, but that's what's going to hold Matchu back a little bit. Just on that note, I'm going to be doing athlete interviews with all of the athletes within the next couple of weeks. So we're going to have Kyle McGowan, his interview is going to be on tomorrow. So make sure, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on this video as well, and you will get to see that interview tomorrow. But also you will get notifications on all of the interviews from the other athletes that are going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks. So make sure, hit that subscribe button. The next 2 athletes up, we've got the Doy Brothers. two mainstays now at this stage in Ireland's Strongest Man. They're always competing down there. Again, looking at their training videos, they look solid. They look well up for this. Overhead, they're very, very strong. And a movement, they're fairly good on. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on the day. The thing with the Doy Brothers that I have seen is they either have fantastic days or they have disappointing days. Doesn't seem to be that much in between. And I think it's a mentality thing. They're both incredible athletes. They either blitz it or start to struggle a little bit. What will happen on the day, we don't know. And it'll be interesting in the interviews to get a little bit of an idea of how they're actually feeling coming into this competition. Because remember, it's only 2 weeks away. It's the 19th today. I'm looking at the calendar. It's the 19th today. So it is just over 2 weeks. It's the 4th of November that this big competition is happening. So the athletes are going to be getting very, very close. They're all going to be getting a little bit nervous. The next athlete we've got up is Kyle McGowan, who, like I said, the interview is going to be on tomorrow. Kyle, again, been at Ireland's Strongest Man for the last few years. I mentioned to him at the interview there that, he's always sort of struggled to break the podium, and it is something that he is really focused on for this competition. That's his target. He really wants that podium position. Obviously, he wants to win, but the podium is sort of like his minimum. That's what he needs to get for himself to be happy. Up after that, we've got Jer Bley, who's had an interesting year. He has had a great run on the natural strongman side of things, missed out on the win at Worlds by a hair. And I think there was a times on the day he thought he had won it, but he just missed out. Very unfortunate for him. Coming from a powerlifting background, the static moves are always going to be strong. I know he's strong on the overhead and he's strong on the stones. It will be interesting again to see how he stands up on the day. One of the taller athletes as well. He's quite a tall guy, so I know he was disappointed with how Worlds went. It will be interesting to see how this goes for him, but I know he will come into it full of confidence. After that, we've got two athletes that I'm going to be straight out and honest with you, I don't know a huge amount about. We've got Big V and we've got Jonathan Kelly. Now, Big V I know practically nothing about. I haven't seen either of these guys compete. Jonathan Kelly, of course, has been around for a while, and I know he's a very good athlete. He's very professional, and I do believe he will really challenge on the day. Big V, however, I have no idea. I'm not even going to say anything because I just don't know. Hopefully, like I say, we will get interviews with all of the athletes, Big V included, and we might get a little bit more of a idea with how he's set for it. After that, we've got Rory Horan. Fantastic year he's having. He's such a young athlete. He has such a future ahead of him. I've said that before. I believe I said it at Strom, where I was like, oh, he's one for the future. He's this, that, and the other. And he surprised everyone. Like he's progressed so far, so quickly that, you sort of think, oh, he's one for the future. And then he goes and smashes a competition and you go, well, maybe he's one for the present. I don't know. I personally think he will turn up on the day. I think he'll be a very strong competitor. The only downside with Rory is the experience side of things. Now, I'm going to say it personally, I don't think it will be a problem for him, but you could understand why it might be, where he is a young athlete and he hasn't had as many years in strongman as some of the other athletes. Could play a part. I don't think it will, but we won't know until we see on the day. So now we've looked at the athletes that are definitely going to be there. Let's look at the lads that are absolutely wrecking my head and have said they're not going to be there, but I can't relax. I feel like they might be. Okay, so we're going to start off with Sean Diver. Ireland's Strongest Man 2022. He's currently on a push to up his body weight. So he's trying to push up to 120, 125. I believe he's probably not too far off that now, but when you move up a weight, it takes time for the body to adapt and actually become comfortable at that weight for your training. Now, about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago maybe, Sean said, no, I'm not actually going to compete. There was a few reasons behind that, but he said, no, I'm not going to compete. However, if you've been watching Sean's training, he is training the events and he's looking very, very solid. Like, his training's going as good as probably he could ever hope for at the moment. So there is a little bit of me that thinks there's a chance that I will show up on the morning of the comp and see him in the car park getting his gear bag out and going, oh yeah, sure, I said I'd have a go. I wouldn't be surprised. I'll be really annoyed, Sean, because I won't get to interview you or any of that sort of stuff. But I do feel like there's a possibility that might change and he might actually compete. We won't know. Again, it's another one. We won't know until the day. But I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it that way. The next one up, we've got Daniel McElroy. Daniel, about a week ago, announced that he was going to pull out. With Daniel, it's a little bit of a different one where I think he wasn't particularly happy with how his training was going. Looked fairly solid, but of course you never know if someone's disappointed in their training. Normally they won't post about it or nobody will actually see it but themselves. His training seemed to be going okay. I feel like there's a little bit of a possibility that, like us all, he may have had a little bit of a run of being disappointed in his training. So anybody out there that has trained for a competition, I'm sure you've had it, where in your build-up, you've had one training session that goes horrendously bad, or you could have 3 or 4 training sessions where you're looking at the weight and going, well, that's what I should be doing. But for some reason, I can't even do 70% of it. This is a disaster. It's all going to fall apart. And you start second guessing why you're actually doing it or whether you should actually compete at this comp or whether you're ready. But just as quickly, you can switch back and go into overdrive and suddenly your training's going incredibly well. I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know if there's injuries or what's happened with Daniel. I don't think there's been injuries. I think it's more of he wasn't particularly happy. But that's why I feel like there's a little bit of a chance that possibly the training will switch back into overdrive and he will decide, do you know what? I'm signed up for this. I'm registered for it and everything else. I'll go down and compete. Himself and Sean are both registered. They have said they're doing it at the start. They've filled in all the forms, dropped out afterwards. So technically, if they wanted, they could turn up on the day and go, do you know what? I'm going to do it. The next one is Pa O'Dwyer, who most people would have expected to see at this. And this is a little bit bigger of a story. I say that as if I'm going to announce some huge thing here, but when the competition was first announced, Pa fairly quickly came out and said that chances are he wasn't going to be able to do it. He had other commitments that meant that he wasn't going to be able to. It was announced quite late, so you can sort of understand that. The issue that comes about with this is that we don't know if Pa will actually get an invite to Britain's Strongest Man, which in previous years he would have expected to get that invite, but we don't know if it'll happen for next year because there's a lot of talk, not sort of official talk, it's more sort of backroom voices that are saying, well, this is the qualifier for Britain's Strongest Man, and you're going to need to do this to get over to it. It's hard to know what will happen. It would be a huge shame not to see Pa at Britain's Strongest Man, because obviously he's an incredible athlete. He's been representing Ireland in this sport for a long time now and doing a great job of it. He's very entertaining as well, and we would love to see him there. And even better, we'd love to see 2 Irish athletes at Britain's Strongest Man. However, there's only a limited number of places, and there are a lot of top athletes that are going through the qualifying phases to get there. So I could see why they will go, no, you didn't qualify, it's not our problem. It was up to yourself to do it. Again, it's one we'll just have to wait and see next year what will happen. Again, that's a little bit of the reason why I think possibly he could do a U-turn right at the last minute if they turned around to him and said, look, you either do this, this is your only chance to get to Britain's Strongest Man. He might go, well, I just have to. I'll have to turn up and try and do my best. The longer he leaves it, the harder that becomes. Who knows? Again, we'll find out on the day, which isn't much help for me trying to do interviews and stuff, but you know, that's what it is. So that's the athlete roster for this competition. So you will see there, it is the best of the best. Any one of them athletes could win this competition, and any one of them could do a great job at Britain's Strongest Man. Who's the favourites? Like I said before, it's so close to call. I don't know if you'd even call anyone a favourite. The names that would stand out, of course, Killian and Jack are the 2 that jump out at me. But, God, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I do think they will be podium places. And something's shouting out at me that Rory O'Hagan will take the 3rd spot. And that's a little bit more of a, I suppose some people might call it a long shot, but I've just been so impressed by his rise that I think he's probably one of the more hungry athletes that is there, and he has a lot to prove. I think purely just because he wants to prove it rather than he needs to prove it. He's hungry for this. They're all hungry. They all want to get to Giants Live. But there's just something about Rory that I think he could slip into that 3rd spot or 2nd spot if other athletes aren't completely focused. And that's the other thing. It all depends on the athlete's psyche on the day. If you're not at the races, if you're just having an off day, you can go from being the absolute favourite to ending up mid-table or right down at the bottom. If you zero an event, if an event goes wrong for you, it could be destroy the whole day for you. Again, injuries, you never know. We've seen some of the top athletes in the world have to drop out of the biggest competitions in the world because they pick up a hamstring injury or a bicep tear or whatever it is. And these would be athletes that you go, well, they're going to blitz these events. And then suddenly, yeah, they're coming in the bottom half of the table because of an injury. But whatever happens, this is not one to miss. So I'm going to say it one more time. The link is in the description below. Head on over, get a ticket. It is €10. It is nothing. So if you can make it up on the day, €10, you will not be disappointed. This is going to be an incredible show. If you're looking at any of the Giants Live shows over in the UK and looking at the cost of tickets to go to see those ones, and you're getting the opportunity here, and the only reason, well, I say the only reason, the main reason I think people are getting the opportunity to come and watch this competition for €10, which would never happen at any other Giants Live or anything like that. The reason you're getting this opportunity is because this was organised quite late, and that has meant that they're just going, right, well, look, we don't have time to advertise the way we normally would, etc., blah, blah, blah. Let's just get the crowds in. So definitely €10, it's a no-brainer. Make sure you get your tickets. However, like I said, if you can't, I'll have a full free live stream. Like I said, it's completely free live stream for the whole day, and you won't miss any of the action. So if you can't make it on the day, tune in, hit that subscribe button now, and then you'll get updates for all of the interviews that are coming up with the athletes over the next 2 weeks, and you will get an update once we go live on the day of the competition. Now, I would stress one final thing, that if you are watching on the day, please guys, keep the live stream chat going. Number one, it sort of makes it a lot more entertaining for you guys when you're chatting amongst yourselves. You get to chat with other strongman fans and share your ideas and share what you think might happen, or just have a bit of crack. The other thing is, you can ask us questions. So we'll have myself, we'll have Ireland's Strongest Woman, and we'll have other guest commentators in there as well that are at the top of the sport. I don't put myself up there in any way, shape or form. But between us, we'll give you answers, we'll have the chat with you, and we'll have a bit of fun. But also, like I said, this is obviously a free live stream. I provide pretty much all of my services for free, and most of you out there will know this. In that live chat, there's what's called super chat. So there's a little sort of $sign down at the bottom of the screen. You can click on that. You can ask a question. You can give a shout out and donate a little bit of money. Those super chats, we will be extremely focused on them. We'll give you a shout out. We'll give you your names. We'll shout out your name on the live stream. Shout out who you're supporting. You can say whatever you want. And if you've donated to the channel, I will read it out within reason. But I still have to answer to official Strongman Giants Live. So maybe not anything, but please consider donating to the channel, because all of this stuff, I love bringing you these competitions. I love bringing you all this content, but being straight out and honest with you, my bank balance just goes down and down. So please, it all costs money to go to these events, buy all the equipment, everything else. And I hate asking for money. It's horrible. But please, if you can, donate to the channel. If you can't, that's totally cool as well. Keep chatting in the live stream. But what you can do is subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it. That's all I ask. For giving this live stream for free, I ask that you do those couple of little things, and that means that other people can enjoy the content as well. But anyway, after all that, I hope that's answered all of your questions about the upcoming competition. I can say it's the biggest one we've seen in a long, long time, and I'm super excited about it. Like I said, athlete interviews are going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks. The first one will be starting tomorrow, so make sure to tune in for that as well. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. We'll see you in the next one.